Hello, I'm Wade Henderson. Join me now for conversations with our neighbors who create visual art. This is Delta Hands. In this edition, we'll see how collaboration can cause a uniquely rich expression. See paintings that capture light with texture, and learn how primitive living inspired new techniques. We begin in the Lafayette studio of Kathy Reed and Stephen Breaux. Their experiences of life and art come together to create cultural expressions with dye on silk.
I think everything and everybody is a symbol on some level, some degree. Look at a mountain is great, but look at the sky in Louisiana is incredible. You know, I can go out and look at the landscape. I can see how it's symbolic, how the emotions I feel inside are. It's symbolic for different aspects in terms of creativity. Just changing the weather, the landscape, the way it changes, and how I go through my day, and it changes. And I've been to several places where the sky seems really close, and you can see great mountains in the physical landscape. But here it's it's very flat, and yet the clouds create these unique forms, and feels very uplifting, and but the ability to change at any moment is very nice too.
Things move at a pace here that are different from, I think, other locations in the country. And there's a richness in the landscape. There's a richness in the colors. The platforms, the music, the food, the whole area is just so rich in a sensory way. And I think that provides a lot of inspiration for being an artist from this area. It's different. There's a difference here. So it makes you want to look inward and look at the roots of the culture. We're trying to go in a direction with the images in our work that hasn't been done in this area before.
I think with the way that Kathy and I contribute is that we're adding to the visual cultural history. And it's not a big grand thing. I think anybody who is from here is doing that. But in the past 40 years or so, there's been a strong movement among many people who are from this place, Acadiana, who becoming much more interested in becoming visual artists and creating works that actually propel the culture into the future. Because a culture that totally relies on its traditions and keeps just repeating those traditions over and over out of rote and do only that will eventually fade. It's a culture that can adapt to the circumstances around that happens to them, who will grow. And I consider, what we do as part of our culture. I consider it part of the world as well, but I also consider it's coming out of, a unique frame of reference. And I don't think this place is repeated anywhere else. It's too unique. So that it's a privilege to be able to live here and see the way the land is changing. I think we're no longer enclosed people. We are dealing with the world.
I guess I'm a real physical person. I move. I like to move a lot, and when I'm working on something artistic, I approach it a lot of times in a real physical way and spontaneous way. Spontaneity's always been real important, but I also have another side that's more measured and likes to plan things and work things out a little bit before I do whatever I'm going to do. And that's also why I like to work with dyes. Steve and I work with dyes on silk, and even though you have an idea of what's going to happen, what you're trying to do with it, the act of doing it produces unexpected things that you then work around and work on, and I really enjoy that aspect of what we're doing.
And I tend to be more interested in the ideas and what's moving them and how they come out in the end. In our work, I think we like to keep our symbols, fairly loose, and yet equal, in some part. we have something to say, but we don't want them to say a particular thing. Further down the road, someone else will see something different. And I don't want my symbol to be stuck, in terms of what things mean in a dream, because they can mean different things to different people.
Some of the effects that you get with dye on the fabric can't be controlled that easily. You can have an idea of what you're going to achieve with it, but it always does what it's going to do. You can control it to a point. There are unexpected things that happen, and I personally like that. It's part of the spontaneous thing that keeps me going, but spontaneity alone doesn't make it with this process. You've got to be very process-oriented as well. There are certain technical things that you have to do to make it work for you, and I like that part of it too. Working on a piece of hand-painted silk this large requires really two people to keep the dye flowing so that you don't get these edges that you don't want. As the dye dries, it forms an edge, a line. So technically, it took both of us to do something on that scale. But when we started sitting down and throwing ideas across and talking about ideas, it was really apparent to both of us that we contributed to each other's ideas in a significant way, that maybe he would have done a separate body of work, I would have done a separate body of work dealing with some of the same issues, but I don't think we would have come to the richness that we've come to without the collaboration.
Next on Delta Hands, one human's experience reflected in color and texture. Then we'll meet the master of her Zydeco Shin.